Hey guys, this is your horny host, Sasha Fierce, and you are listening to an episode of We're All Fucked, a podcast all about sex, dating, non-dating, and relationships with the hopes of improving sexual confidence and skills. Times are crazy nowadays. We should all know how to get fucked the right way. Oh, fuck yes. It is time for episode 6. Today's topic is anal sex. Now, anal sex is not just penis related, guys. It's also related to fingers, toys. You can do anal sex in all different types of ways. Basically, any type of anal penetration where the goal is sexual stimulation. Now, everyone has a butthole, so everyone can engage in anal sex, any gender, any sexual orientation. So you get the pleasure from nerve endings. That stimulation for men is through the prostate, and for women, inside of the vagina is that G-spot that we all know and care about. And some people don't even believe in it, but I promise you it's there. I will talk more about the female orgasm next week, actually. So let's just get more into this week's topic of anal sex. Now, today I have a couple of people joining me in bed. Welcome, Roni and Joe. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Very happy to be here.
So you guys are brand new. Thank you again for being my guest host. Roni, how do you feel about anal sex?
Hey, well, I am open to it. I've done a little bit here and there. For the most part, I feel like, when you get to the point where you're sharing your body with someone, then anything kind of goes until you reach a hard line. So that's not one for me.
I agree. All right. So Joe, what do you think? What is your take on it? How do you feel?
The hard line thing is pretty important. Obviously consent goes without saying. There should always be discussion probably beforehand. That's not something you want to just spring on somebody. Having said that, I've been seeing someone recently who is very into it. And that's new for me. I mean, I've done it before a few times since college and everything, but for me being a top, it's more just me knowing that I'm there, to provide a certain sensation for the person that I'm topping. Understand? So for me, it's not anything terribly special. I'm happy to do it, but either way, I feel like at the end of the day, if there's an ejaculation, I've done.
You've done your job.
Yeah, well, the job for me has been done. I've got a completely different job.
Awesome. So yeah, you bring up a good point about the whole consent about it. So I think everybody agrees, right? There has to be a discussion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, there has to be a discussion, right, with most sex, with everything. But interestingly, this is one thing that I think most people definitely need to confirm the other person is okay with before you even try to slide in there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for those opinions, guys. All right, so I'm going to get into some knowledge about anal sex and some historical facts and whatever. Fun, interesting, and technical facts, actually. Now, in 2010, there was a study of heterosexual anal sex, and that was done by Dr. Kimberly McBride. This is just straight couples, just, straight people, just in case you need clarification. Now, she found that 51% of men and 43% of women participated in at least one act of anal sex play up until that point, right? So everyone's at least tried it for the most part in this group, about 50% of heterosexuals, which is quite a bit. So 69% of those people and 69% of the men in that group and 73% of women in that group are actually in exclusive monogamous relationships. So that makes for the obvious, the discussions there, the consent is there, the comfort, you're comfortable with that person. The interesting thing would be when you started your relationship, did you, do this, or was it like after, you got comfortable? So I'm sure that's the case. Trust is a big factor in that. You have to be comfortable. You have to trust that person. Now, this is one of the, rare research studies out there, I think, on heterosexual anal sex, because it's still very taboo. It's still looked at as, more of a homosexual type of, sexual activity. I think they have millions and millions of studies on that, but not too many with just random straight couples. So I think that's pretty cool. It's getting more and more. So yeah, in 2017, there was a study that found that 5% of women and 4% of men were gay. And out of that, 5% of actually all American men watch gay porn. So I feel like still there's a ton of people in the closet that I'm sure that, engaging in gay porn, whether they are into it or not, maybe, whether they're curious. So, but I think a good amount of people probably watch gay porn in some fashion, but it's interesting to know 5% of all men watch gay porn, but porn is such a unreal.
That's a lower percentage than I would have expected, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like not that many would
Agreed,
admit.
yeah.
I don't think people would admit.
Well, that's 5% of the people willing to tell the truth about it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, there we go.
So research also found that homosexual men said that during the course of their lives, only about 85% of the time they receive anal sex and 90% of the time they give. So that's that whole top and bottom thing. When you're on the bottom, you receive. When you're on the top, you give. I think the majority of people just prefer to be on top. It's just most of the time they do that. I think it's a lot of dominance and power involved. But
there's actually, I'm sorry if I can interrupt.
Yeah,
The funny thing about that is that I've realized there's a lot of bravery involved with wanting to be a bottom. Well, bravery, maybe not the right word, but a willingness to go through that. You know what I mean? Pain and whatnot.
Exactly.
I've heard about when you relax, obviously, that's what you want to do. It makes everything feel a whole lot better, obviously, than when you don't. We'll probably touch on that later. But I obviously have tried it. Well, I say obvious, not a lot of guys would probably admit to that. I think it's to have any sort of opinion or to know yourself, it's kind of sexually irresponsible to not try these things. Just to know if you can be into it or not. And I'm not one to shy away from much. So I've tried it and I've just not been able to get to the point of relaxing enough to where I can enjoy it. So I may try it again, but for the time as it is, I'm identifying as a top. Having said that, having tried it as many times as I have, there's definitely, it makes sense that most people would want to remain a top. There's a lot of extra stuff that goes into being a bottom and willing to take that on.
Absolutely.
Emotional and physical.
Exactly. I think physically, obviously, when you're on the top, it's more pleasurable for you. When you're on the bottom, you have to really enjoy it in order for it to be pleasurable for you. So yeah, if you're tense or nervous or reluctant or any type of feeling that would make you not super excited about it, it might not please you, but you'll try to get into it, as you said. So interesting. Good stuff. Now, amongst most homosexual men, this study also found that there are the top 3 ways of engaging in sex. The number 1 was oral sex, right? Number 2 was mutual masturbation, and number 3 is anal sex. So it really, that's third base. It's really like, it gets to that level, just like any, first, second, third base. It's like, yeah, you got to start slow. So interestingly, mutual masturbation is more common than anal sex. And a lot of homosexual guys actually will go through life almost never having anal sex, and that's okay too. Now, we all know who doesn't talk about sex, and that's young people, old people, and educational institutions. Did you, last week on my last episode, we talked a little bit about sex ed. Did you guys remember sex ed in school?
Oh, yeah.
It was minimal.
Did they talk about anal sex?
They did a health class.
No.
For like a semester. It was like half the semester was PE and the other half was...
That's what I did. And they just taught you how to put a condom on and just never have sex or whatever.
No, yeah. And I'm from Kentucky, so in Kentucky, they generally stay more conservative on what they can talk about in the school and then recommend that parents do the teaching.
Oh, wow.
You're not going to be responsible for this? What about you, Ronnie?
I think...
Oh, well, yeah, mine was the same. It was like health class was like 1 quarter, and then gym was like the other 3, and this was like mandatory throughout, I guess, middle school and up. But yeah, no, all I remember is, the horrifying pictures that they would put in the books, and, and I think they were trying to be a little bit more progressive in a sense. I know that there were like other smaller groups where they would kind of do little skits and touch on, sexual harassment and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
I thought that was like, from what I, mind you, I did most of my schooling in Jersey and then the last bit in the South. So the difference is like, it's enormous. It's so crazy, the things that that I learned, and how everything was really like, they took it so seriously. And then down here, I was just kind of like, oh, what is that? What is this? Like, listening to some of I'm like, wow, you guys haven't had this drilled into your brains too.
Very
But yeah,
interesting.
totally different, and
Yeah,
lot more focused on close your legs. But that,
exactly.
yeah,
And
no,
not getting
horrible.
into, I mean, I don't expect a teacher to fully stand up in front of the class and talk about anal sex, of course. But they just
Right,
don't really
right.
get into sex in general. And if you don't understand it, you don't know what to do with it. And then that introduces
Hmm.
all of these, fears. And so anal sex is just one of those.
Right, right.
Yeah. So there was a study done in 2000 in colleges actually, because by the time you get to college, if you're at the dorms or whatever, and even for those ages, you expand more sexually. And so they did a study and they found that 23% of college students were engaging in something called technical virginity, where they were having anal sex, but not
Mm.
vaginal. Like for females, it wasn't vaginal sex. So they're technically considered a virgin. And researchers confirm that, yeah, like in order for women to to lose their virginity, they have to have that hymen broken. And if that doesn't happen, then they're still technically a virgin. So there are teenagers and college, females out there that are only doing anal sex to preserve that. Very interesting. I never even heard of that until like 5 years ago.
It's
I have heard of
popular.
it. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say it's most popular, I would imagine, among the religious
Oh, sure.
crowd, the kids who are brought up in the church and stuff like that,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
avoid losing virginity, but
Hmm.
still, you know.
Isn't that just interesting? Because you would think that anal sex would be more like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you're not supposed to have sex
Yeah.
before marriage,
Yeah.
but this type of aggressive, like, it's like they just
This
justify
one is
it
okay. Yeah,
hypocritically.
yeah.
And both of you are from the South, which, or not from the South, but have lived, Joe, I know you're from there. And Ronnie, you were there, what, you were middle school or teenager?
No, I finished my senior year of high school here.
Okay, so
So,
as
and
an
then,
adult.
went to
Hmm.
college and stayed. Yeah. Hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
I see. I see. So you have different viewpoints with that, but yeah, in the South, it's much
Hmm.
more Christian and conservative, and a lot of places.
Oh, definitely.
yep.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, just randomly, a random fact is that people substitute anal sex during, substitute vaginal sex with anal sex during menstruation, and also as a form of birth control, as we just said. The ass has been eroticized by people like J Lo, Beyonce, Kim K. Back in the day, maybe in the 70s, it was cool to have a flat ass, and then like eventually, now we're looking at people that want a fat ass, and people are getting ass implants, and the curves and everything like that are more eroticized and popular. So a lot of people are really wanting anal sex because they just like the ass more.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
So women can be tops. Women can give anal sex. They can put on a strap on, use a dildo, use fingers, whatever they want, and they could do that. I just want to be clear with that. There really isn't enough research to conclude that heterosexual men dislike being a receiver of anal sex due to their sexual orientation, being no more than hetero. So of course, straight men are like, oh my god, I don't want anybody to think I'm gay. I don't want to do anything with my butt because then I'm gay. It's like, no, you're not. Just because you have something in your butt doesn't mean you're just automatically gay. So eventually, people
Yeah.
like this get over it. But there's not enough research to support anything involved with that. So I want to say a little something from the British Medical Journal that was published in 1999. They found that, and I quote, there is little published data on how many heterosexual men would like their anus to be sexually stimulated in a heterosexual relationship. Anecdotally, it is a substantial number. And they go on to say that 7% of heterosexual men between 14 and 94 years old report being a receptive partner during intercourse at least once. So, big range there, small percentage, again, like Joe said earlier, of the people who admit it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Hmm.
great.
Incidentally, I have a good friend of mine actually just confess. I don't, confess is not the right word, but he filled me in. He was saying, no pun intended. He filled me in saying that like since as long as he can remember, age 10, 11, when he started like discovering masturbation and his own body, his own sexuality, part of that was stimulating his anus.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
he said that even at the time, um, first of all, around this age, I don't know if you guys remember, but that like the favorite thing, we're all around the same age, I'm assuming. Around that year, I feel like the big fun insult to throw around was gay.
Yeah.
You know, like if you
That's
wanted to make
gay.
fun of
You're
someone when
gay.
you're
Yeah.
10, 11,
Oh, yeah.
that's so gay. But he said he was very confident, even at such a young age, that it had nothing to do with who he was attracted to. He just tried it and learned very quickly that he loved it. And that's his primary way of masturbation at this point. And he, you know, is heterosexual and he's very confident in that. And I was, and
that.
he's not kind of broadcasting this information for everybody.
course.
So it was nice and kind of a special moment that I was able to share that with him. But yeah, exactly. It a lot of times has nothing to do your sexuality at all.
Exactly.
Just
A
kind
butt
of
is
basic
the butt.
anatomy.
Yeah.
Everybody has one, and there's, you know, everybody has the ability to be stimulated there. It's just biology.
Right.
Yeah.
I personally, I really like when I have I'm single right now. So I like the opportunity when I'm with someone, when they're open to that. And,
Yes.
you know, talking about hetero males. And, you know, I've only had maybe one or two who have been like really open to it and very vocal about being open to it. Whereas the others, it was kind of like, maybe a little, and they'd be like, no, or yes, you know, but I really do feel like, and, you know, I can't speak for them, but it's like, you don't know until you explore. As Joe said earlier, being almost borderline sexually irresponsible to yourself.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good way to put that too, Joe. Like that's exactly what it feels like. And I think a lot of people still are hesitant to admit certain things about themselves sexually, regardless if they indulge in it or not. Even if they're slightly dating somebody that's like, yeah, I'm into anal sex, and they might be into anal sex, but they're just like, oh, I don't know what to tell. I don't want to tell this person right away that I'm into.
Oh my God. And the fear of bringing it up and being shot down about it.
Yeah. Even if the other person says that they like it, you still have that fear that just saying it out loud to somebody is, you know, you're almost shameful, but you shouldn't be.
Oh my God.
It's what makes you feel good. And
right.
We're not allowed to feel good, the Bible says. Apparently, right? Like throughout so much religion, it's just like, no, just don't do all the stuff that makes you feel good.
That you enjoy.
And then you'll go to heaven, which is when you'll feel good for the rest, you know, of eternity.
If you're enjoying life, you're doing it wrong. Basically. I wish that was an exaggeration, man. That's just, and it's not.
So yeah, it's like so stupid, but I agree, and I think that within that conversation, you just always have to have that conversation, and once you get comfortable with that conversation, everybody's well okay. So there's so much historical whatever that happens with anal sex. It's always been around. Since humans have been around, we've been sticking things in our holes. Everybody's been experimenting with their bodies. There's nothing that's new. The earliest records of pleasurable anal sex comes from the ancient Sumerians in the 6th and 5th millennium BC. That was one of the first civilizations of the world. They had a very lax opinion on anal sex, probably because they were the first civilization, so nobody fucked it up for them. Nobody turned anal sex into something that was weird.
They didn't have, like, rules about it. Yeah.
Right.
So it probably turned into somebody got offended or somebody got ashamed, and then over time everybody just got weird with it. But they had omens like about anal sex. They even had a proverb that, you know, that said like, oh, after the blah, blah, blah wiped his ass, he said, you must not arouse that which belongs to my mistress.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And some priestesses, you know, some women were not allowed to have sex unless they need to procreate. It happens on a very specific day of the year or whatever. And so in the meantime, hey, I'll have all the butt sex you want, just as long as, you know, you just are good on the other end, which again goes back to that technical virginity, right? So doing it the Greek way is literally a phrase that is anal sex related. Like if you're going to be like, oh, you know, let's go romp around the Greek way, it just means you're about to have anal sex. And people were saying that for the longest time because the Greeks were known during those ancient times to be the ones that engaged in a lot of anal sex and for pleasure, not like anything else. So they didn't really think that it was lax or like cool like the Sumerians did. It was mostly between males of the same age, not like older and younger type of a thing. But when older males did engage with anal course with younger males, it was obviously more shameful for the younger person. Like we discussed, it's a little more, submissive or whatever you want to say. If you're on the bottom, if you feel a little comfortable being in that position, typically, when you're younger, it's like you're already vulnerable anyway. And these older males are just like taking upon themselves, whether they want to teach you or you're the pupil, which is something that they did, or if you just want to dominate in some way, or if you're both just gay and like, this is just cool for you. As long as the bottom is not perceived as feminine, most likely that person would accept it. So I think that generally when Greek men engaged in anal sex, it was as long as they were both masculine in some way at the same time is when it would be a little more accepted. So I guess they made it a little more like in the closet type of having sex thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the Greeks who, just real quick, didn't they, when they were doing theater, because even the female roles in the plays were all played by males too. So it was also like a bit of entertainment. First time, porn before Pornhub.
Exactly. Absolutely. And they would joke about it. They would, they would introduce stigmas and introduce taboo situations through these performances. You're absolutely right. Now the Romans actually made fun of the Greeks during those performances. They were the ones that did that mainly. Now the Romans had anal sex with people, but they didn't have it with each other for pleasure. They had it with their slaves because they wanted to show that dominance. They wanted all of their slaves, male, whatever, to feel feminine. They wanted them to feel vulnerable, and how the Romans do. Assholes. So you were considered unmanly if you're not the one penetrating. And the Romans roasted the Greeks for years and years because of the difference in their anal sex opinions. In the Middle Ages, people were known to be masturbating anally, just like Joe's friends, and not necessarily with a partner. That was more common and based off of Christian beliefs. Again, having sex with each other is a little, God doesn't want that. God doesn't want you to, break your hymen, but God doesn't say anything about you can't masturbate with your own asshole. So, but due to the Christian beliefs, it's still a sin against nature, and it's, that turned into a taboo from those Christians all the way up to our Christians today. During Renaissance times, even though there were homosexual males engaging in relations, most of them did not perform anal sex due to the diseases and illnesses that can come from doing such a thing. During those times, people were filthy. Filthy, filthy, filthy. So to do something like that, most likely you'll get some nasty shit and pass it to everybody else. And they were just not trying to be that way. So they were just gay to, probably doing mutual masturbation, but not anal sex. Now, in the Torah for Judaism, it says that men can give their wives basically any type of sex just as long as their semen doesn't expend to no purpose. So they can have anal sex, they can have oral sex, they can have vaginal sex. But whenever somebody is about to come, that cum has to go inside the woman. Or,
or vagina
purpose of
specifically.
procreating. Right? What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's for the purpose of procreating.
Absolutely. That's it. So if you're gonna waste your little sperms, you're gonna go, you're not gonna survive. No, but it's like that's entirely the point of having that, and that's why a lot of religious people, they even with Christianity, you can't use a condom. That semen has to be for the reason of procreation. Have all the sex you want, just as long as
God doesn't care about the journey.
Just
he only
as long
cares
as there's
about
a baby
the
coming.
Hey, in the pussy. Oh God, and it feels better when you come in the pussy, right?
It all feels pretty good, I'll be honest.
Exactly, yeah. So there are, like, getting into those current cultural stigmas that, we still have the controversial, sex in various cultures, and most cultures still, primarily with regard to religious prohibitions. Like we said, they have a huge part in determining sexual orientations and activities. They call them unnatural. They say you can't procreate. God says no to all this fun stuff. Like you guys just told me, do you have your own religious versus sexual experiences? Like, did you guys grow up religious and have this beaten into your brain? You want to talk about that?
I could talk about that for a while.
Go ahead, Joe.
Ronnie, if you have anything to say I would do it now because I'm going to be in here for a while.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, my religious background is Christian, but I kind of sort of, I wouldn't say I grew up in the church because I did not go to church every week by any means, but my did, and those kind of, I guess, Christ-like qualities or whatever were kind of like bestowed on me, and they're like certain religious things. However, as it relates to sex and everything, my mom was like, well, yeah, the Bible says you have to wait till marriage, but she knew when it's like, oh, I see you with your little boyfriend, let's have these talks, or here, I got you this book about sexual blah 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 blah, and I'll wait. And she was like, well, when you're ready, just let me know. If you're too embarrassed, or if he's too embarrassed to go to the store, you need to tell me, and I will get you what you need. She's awesome sauce.
That's awesome.
Like 98% of people don't get that. My parents never taught me anything. I grew up Catholic, half Jewish. I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade. I was a nymph since I can remember. And my sex ed was just stupid. Talked about your period, said don't have sex. I mean, I masturbated early. I didn't engage in anal anything because I never really thought about it. But yeah, I didn't, my parents were older. They did not want to talk about sex with me. They did not how to introduce it. I didn't have any sisters or female cousins that really helped me with that. So you're really blessed to have somebody say, oh, I see you have a boyfriend. Let's have this talk. Let's give you this.
Yeah. I have an older sister too.
Oh,
So,
wow, nice.
I think that's what kind of was like, you know what, we've been through this with her. Let me just go ahead and tell you something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. All right, Joe, get into it real quick.
Oh, man. All right. Well, yeah, jumping right in. My father is a minister.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
And he has a ministry that is specifically geared toward sexual addiction, which is specifically geared toward the sin of homosexuality.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Joe!
Wow.
This is mind-blowing.
I know.
That's heavy.
It's
That
really
is the
heavy.
heaviest.
So I'm the youngest of 3 boys in my family. So when my dad actually founded his ministry, he had to tell the family about it. My mom was already aware. Basically, the quick history of that is my dad, through most of his life, was, he calls it struggling with homosexuality, which to me, everybody's on a spectrum. Everybody is on the spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you can get comfortable with that, then you can very well live a very happy life. When you're surrounded by religion, the word for all of it is, unless you're married to the woman, it's shame. Shame on everything. Shame on masturbation, shame on any filthy thoughts, any desires that are anything other than making love to my wife for the sake of worshiping God.
Yeah.
Right? So my dad having this ministry, he had to tell the family. At the time I was 10 years old. So I was just like entering the puberty years, I was discovering, but my older brother was 16. So like, I understand why my dad had to tell the family. It's because, my older brother was fastly approaching, the age where, teenagers are losing their virginity for the most part. So, but I was only 10 years old. So I had this knowledge at such a young age, which kind of fucked a lot of stuff up throughout those years because, well, my dad is such a conservative guy. And he really ran away from the notion of being open-minded about it because of his passion for religion. So he always thought that because him being my father and him having this ministry and him kind of acting like he was an authority on the subject, which runs on a spectrum. I don't know. I mean, you can have a lot of knowledge on a subject, but I don't consider anybody to be a professional, when it comes to any of this, not because it's infinite and it's on such a spectrum. So he always expected me, anytime I had an issue or anytime I had a question or anytime I had a thought about anything, to come to him and to seek his wisdom, the way that he would say it's mirror imaged in his passion for God. Like if he had any things that he was unsure about, he would take it to God. So he wanted his son to mirror that, asking the Father, you know what I mean?
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it had the complete opposite reaction. I was 11 years old and discovering masturbation. And how am I supposed to bring that up to my dad, knowing that I could get in trouble for having the thoughts in the first place? I remember a specific time I was on the phone discussing homework with a friend of mine, happened to be a girl. We were in a group project, whatever. And I remember I was in my laundry room, just kind of pacing the house. And as is like to do in a young man's life, my balls got itchy. So I started scratching my balls and forgive me. But my dad happened to see that moment where I was reaching in my pants and talking to a girl on the phone,
Oy.
grounded me
Oh,
from the
wow.
phone immediately, took my
Ah,
phone away and
ah.
sent me to my room. And
Uh,
then I don't remember what happened after that. I just remember that
yeah.
doesn't boost any kind of desire to bring any kind of sexual issues to him.
If it can
So
be
yeah.
easily
Mm.
misconstrued, then you already know he has that tunnel vision.
Oh man.
Why bring
His
it up if he's gonna? I can't even explain myself that I was just scratching my balls. He can't even
you
Yeah.
know,
understand if I
I
wanted to
told him.
do
I
more.
said, Dad, I had an itch. He said, Son, I've been scratching that itch for a long time myself.
Oh, wow.
He
Okay.
I
All right. So
am
that's
right now
that's something.
being open-minded about sex and acknowledging the spectrum and being pretty
Mm.
free with my sexuality, and kind of remaining single because of that. I've never been in a non-monogamous relationship, and I don't really do
Mm.
well in monogamous relationships, so I
Mm-hmm.
tend to just stay
Mm.
single.
Mm-hmm.
I'm my father's worst nightmare, which
Good.
is
Mm.
which is which is
Right.
why I probably, had the name change.
But you being the best, truest version of yourself is like
Way
whatever.
more important
It's
to
your
me.
dream. Yeah. Your
If
dream
my
is,
if my father found out that I was doing this podcast, it would break his heart.
Yeah,
but
of course.
but
you know.
it was more important to get. I'm sure I'm not the only one
Of course. You're
Yeah.
who
not.
Yeah.
had to deal
And
with
Most
that
yeah.
definitely.
growing up.
And again, people don't bring it up with themselves. They don't bring it up with other people. They definitely don't bring it up with their parents. And I think that, and you can disagree, most of religious ideas or what have you or beliefs, it's opinion. And you can't force that on somebody else, regardless if they're your child or, if they're your best friend. You literally can't just raise your children and think that they're going to have the same views as you. And you can't teach them,
Mm-hmm.
this is the way to make a, pizza pie. This, you have to have this, you have to have that, and you spin it around and you bake it. Okay, that's how you make a pizza pie. That's fact. You can't just say this is how it works in the sexual world and that's the only way that it goes
Right.
because I
Right.
said so and God said so, and you can't disagree with that because it's a belief, it's an opinion. So of course he'll be disappointed that you don't agree with him. He should not be disappointed that you have your own opinion. And that's why it's very important for people to understand they need to be their fucking selves, or they will never understand that they are entitled to their own opinion and free voice. My opinion. Very brave of you, Joe, to go into that, and I
Extremely.
promise
Yeah.
you, your papa won't find out that.
I'm
but,
not worried about it really. It's
but
not like he's
yeah.
gonna be Googling.
It's okay.
Oh,
But yeah, you're from Kentucky, and most of the South is conservative. A lot of areas all over the country are conservative. But here we are in the eastern region and kind of, even Ronnie, you're from North, I'm sorry, living in, but you're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
used to that, at all. But up here it's, a little easier to be those free,
Mm-hmm.
So wow, thanks again for sharing, Joe. That was incredible. I had
That
no idea
was.
had no
Yeah.
idea that was going on, and so I give you a lot of bravery. Do you have an okay relationship with your dad? Is it a good relationship now?
I mean, it's super surfacey. I
Yeah.
would say
Mm.
that we talk, I mean, several times a year, but a lot of people call their parents and have really good relationships with their parents and call them once a week, whatever. I see my parents on holidays, not 2020, obviously, but it's very
Yeah. Yeah.
surfacey. I don't think my dad really knows the first thing about what's going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Because
What
why
about
would
your
I,
siblings?
why would I
So,
hurt him just by telling him
Of
what
course.
I've been up to? You know what I
no.
mean? And I'm
Now,
not
if he
certainly not going to
asked
make the
you,
sacrifice of not living my own life just to appease him.
yeah,
Mm.
you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of people, they either never get to that point, or they do later in life where they're realizing, hey, you know what? I don't need to tell them. I don't need them to know this to accept
Yeah.
it. If they're
Mhm.
most likely not going to accept it, don't bring it up unless it gets brought up, unless they really want to know.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you can
Yeah.
celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole notion of like coming out to one's parents is huge in the queer community.
Absolutely.
Because for a lot of people, not knowing what the reaction could be, if it's a positive reaction, can be super freeing. Such a weight lifted off your shoulders to be able to share that with your family, with your parents and stuff like that.
Mm.
And then for a lot of us on this side, you know what the reaction is going to be. So there's really, and it's not like a negative thing to a certain point either, to not be able to share it with my dad. It's just not something I want to discuss with my dad. Yeah, I guess, what am I trying to say here?
No, I feel like
Yeah.
it's almost like there are people who know that their parents will not approve and they want to tell them anyway to get it off their chest. And then there are people who don't know if their parents are going to approve, so they get it off their chest. And then there are people like you who probably knows that they're not going to approve and doesn't care either way for them to even know. You're going to feel the same way. Or do you feel like if you told your father, it'll take a whole weight off of your chest?
Oh no, I feel like it would only add stress on every level.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel better because
I wouldn't. I as much as I think it's wrong, a wrong way to believe and a wrong way to react, I know how my dad would react. So I would never burden him with what I'm doing in my life.
Interesting.
Because I do still love him. You know, I have that relationship with him. I have the relationship with him that is, I love him and therefore I will lie to him.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you have to do that though.
Strong facts. Really strong facts.
Sometimes you have to do that.
For both of our sakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't want to disappoint by telling the truth. And if you really love and care about somebody, just because you don't say it doesn't mean it's, bad of you to not bring it up, right?
Right. I mean, because if you think about it, there's probably a lot that parents would never, divulge to their children.
Yeah.
So that same respect kind of should, go both ways, honestly, and I understand, being your true self, you know what I'm saying? You have to be able to be your true self, and who better to share that with than parents and all. But yeah, sometimes you have to have those lies, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Because like goofy lies to you when you were kids, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta come inside or else the bugs will all come inside or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know how parents do.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I think you're right. I think not everybody needs the support and love from their parents with regard to these things. When you have a whole community of people and friends and other family members and mentors who will support you even way more. So as long as you
the real family, the true family,
and you have that support. I mean, what the parents know and don't know isn't really that relevant, and that goes, with most things that we do as teens and adults and stuff. So I'm going to go into what are people saying. So I did a social media poll, and I got from people around our age, a good maybe, I don't know, like 150 people. 75% of the average person right now engages in anal sex and likes it. And then there's a huge, not a huge, but a good portion, 30 probably to 40% of people who have done it. They don't like it. They don't prefer it. But nowadays, I think that a lot of people like it. So let me get into some comments that people shared with me. So first is Sherman. He is a straight male. He's Jamaican, was born there, came to the States as a teenager, and in his culture, it is very well associated with homosexuality, which a lot of other cultures and religious groups think that anal sex is only for homosexuals, and if you do it as a male, you're definitely gay, and you can't be gay in this culture, so we'll, kill you or beat you up or put you in jail. So he said that it's not that he never wanted to try it. He always wanted to try it, but he physically can't do it because of the the way that people beat into his brain over and over again that this means you're gay.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of brainwashing going on, you guys.
A lot of brainwashing.
Yeah, that's a huge mental shackle.
And I don't know if I mean, I'm sure he might try to do it later. He might get married, feel really comfortable with his wife. She might say, hey, why don't we do this? And he might do it and end up liking it. But,
right.
With other people, with any religion, you have that you go to do it and you almost can't enjoy it sexually because something is screaming in your ear that this is wrong because of everybody else growing up. Joe's dad, screaming in his ear that it's wrong. So wow. The next person I have is Jeremy. Jeremy is a gay male. He said, I think it's extremely pleasurable, at least for guys, and a couple of girlfriends say the same. But overall, I prefer to be the bottom in my sexual relationships because it's a lot more pleasurable for me. I think it's important to also be very safe, make sure you're relaxed. I feel a lot of people don't like it or are scared of it because it's a sensitive muscle, and if you're not properly relaxed, yes, it can be painful. I've had some pretty good partners who have loosened me up and it was easy to relax. So the more comfy and sexually attracted to a person you are, the more he enjoys that. He also said that he only had one weird experience where they weren't properly lubed because it was like in the moment, so it kind of hurt. But he did it anyway. So that's his comment on that. Very good points. Gina, who is a straight female, said, "I don't love it. It's not a first choice usually. However, the more I have done it, the more I have understood that I do enjoy it. I have to be in the mood. I'm also a squirter, so if I'm having anal and getting fingered, it intensifies the entire thing. Also, I'm a girl that will fuck on her period unless it's like day 2 and it's super gross and no showers easily available. But she'll go for anal, and when you have your period and you fuck anally, it's just bliss." This is all something more of in my adult years. I definitely wasn't into this at all as a kid or a young adult. Then she goes on to say she had one sexual experience where she had anal sex in a car in the middle of summer. It was so hot, heat-wise and sex-wise.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
I just want to throw it out there. I love anal sex. I love sex in cars. I don't think I can do anal sex in a car sweaty in the summer. I feel comfortable after. That is quite a story. So thanks, Gina, for that. Gina's really just.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Gina. I agree. I'm a little bit like Gina. And then she said, "I never thought that the words 'fuck me in my ass' would ever come out of my mouth." So she's one of those straight females that was always like, "Ew, no, gross, anal sex, nah," and then did it and was like, "Oh, I fucking love this, and I'm gonna love all types of this thing." So the next person, her name is Lynette. Lynette is also a straight female. She said, "I've tried it a couple of times, but it's not enjoyable for me for the most part. I can tolerate it sometimes when I'm cleaned out, but even then it's rare. The guy I've currently been seeing really enjoys it, so I do tolerate it every now and then. I really don't mind it, but I just don't want it all the time, and he is very understanding. We have great sex regardless, but when I let him do anal, he loves it." So I think that's really important, because it's like, yeah, I'm not thrilled, but I don't hate it. I feel like if she hated it, she wouldn't do it. But if she did it and she hated it, then it's like, come on, like, don't just do it because of the sake of the other person really wanting it. There's a line.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So for her,
Hard lines, man.
there's a line. And I feel like this type of person would try it every now and then, and no matter how much they try it, they just don't like it. A lot of people agree that with anal sex, the first time it hurts, the second, third time, you have to get comfortable with the act, get comfortable with the person, and then eventually it's pleasurable for you. There are people like Lynette where they just go the whole time and it's never pleasurable for them. And regardless or not if they're putting that into their brain, this is just how she feels. Very interesting. I have a straight guy who, his name is Sean. He basically was like straightforward. I like it, but not with every girl, not all the time. Really 1,140% or whatever depends on that person and how comfortable he is with that person. Has nothing to do with anything else. And I think that's the basis of this, because it is sensitive, thin, very delicate organ, your anus. It's very easy to tear, it's very easy to hurt, and people just don't want to do it if it's not comfortable in all fronts. I had another straight male who said he doesn't like it at all. He never wanted to try it. He was always so nervous doing it. He usually can't even perform it because, he couldn't even stay hard because of that. But one time he did it, he was so scared that she was just going to poop, right? That is literally the one thing that everybody is really afraid of. Oh, A, it's going to hurt, and B, what if I poop? So he couldn't even focus. But the one time that he did have anal that he did enjoy was unplanned. It was in the shower. They were starting just having regular sex, and she just put it in her butt herself. She was using the shower head to stimulate her clit, which I'll talk about in a second. And then he was just like, you know what? I'm just going to put it in your ass. It was just one of those things where it was just natural, unplanned, comfortable in the moment, and that was enjoyable for him. Science.
And passion.
Doesn't like it unless it's
Right,
like this.
yeah.
Come on. Have to be comfortable. I don't know about the shower. I'm hoping she was wet as fuck, because that water sometimes
That's what I'm
washes
saying.
away.
The
Right,
shower is
yeah,
always a
yeah,
hard
the
place to
water
have
doesn't
sex
help.
because it washes away any natural lubricant.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe
maybe soap. I don't know what they were.
There's some masochism in there.
Some soap.
Or maybe maybe they just wanted it to like whatever.
Maybe she wanted it to hurt. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. So I have another friend. His name is John, and he was like, "I love it. I have loved anal sex since the day I was born." Basically, he said since he was 15 years old, he's had an obsession with the ass in general. He wants to lick it, he wants to eat it, he wants to put things in it, he wants to put himself in it. So he has, since he lost his virginity at 17, he has always had anal sex with the women that he said, if you dated me, we've had anal sex, hands down. Like I can't date you unless you do. Very strong opinions on that. And he wanted to point out he has dated a lot of girls, so there are a lot of girls out there that he wanted to make sure enjoyed anal sex. So I have another friend. Her name is Tina. Tina is very into it, but has dated guys who have not been into it and who have been into it. The guy that she's with right now just loves eating her ass more than he loves putting it in her ass. So that's another thing that's not, anal sex necessarily. If you do any type of penetration is when it's anal sex. But that tossing the salad, licking it, motorboating the ass, like that's a
Still
whole
just anal sex or oral sex.
I mean, it's still technical anal
Yeah,
sex,
yeah.
oral sex. So he's really into that with her, and other boyfriends never really showed interest. They just, she can use toys. They want her to use toys, but they don't want to really get into it. The last person who I want to talk about who sent me a message, really interesting stuff. Her name is Tiana, and she said, I think that anal sex has a huge stigma behind it for no reason. People automatically assume it's bad or just for gay men, and it's not. Don't get me wrong, it's not something I do all the time, but when we do, it's usually really great and it spices up our sex life. I just want to interject that this person recently got engaged and lives with her fiance. They've been with each other for a couple of years. So she says she doesn't want to do it all the time, but when she does, it's great. Again, it's something to add into your
That's
sex.
wonderful.
Yeah. Don't do it all
Yeah.
the time. Do it when it's blah, when you feel like it. So she always said
Yeah.
that she was terrified of it when she was younger, like most people are, because of it hurting or Code Brown situation. Code Brown.
Put that
Have you
on
guys
a
ever heard of that?
t-shirt.
Never heard of
Stop.
that?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No,
It's a thing.
I haven't
No.
though.
Code Brown. Stop on
Code
your head.
Brown.
So she does say that, it hurting and that those are the only two things people really fear. But you have to trust your partner. And if you do, eventually it could be as good, if not better than regular sex. You have to know your body and trust your partner to know it as well in order for it to be successful. As for the stigma, it doesn't make you dirty or weird for liking it. She said, I forget the scientific terms for all of the receptors that make it pleasurable, but they're the same ones that exist in your vagina, so of course it's going to feel just as good. Just be safe and
Yes.
And interjection, she's a nurse, so she was like, I forget all the names of other things. I just know that it's really amazing. So those are a couple of messages that people have sent to me regarding this. People who like it, don't like it, have been with people who like it and don't like it. Anal sex hurts. The anal sphincters are tighter than the vagina's pelvic muscle. Most males and females are afraid to even try it. If lube is not present, it will not work. The vagina has a natural lube, but the ass does not. The pussy can get wet, but the ass is just an ass. And if you don't have something to help, and also it's like the asshole, and then it's like nothing, right? It's like
Right.
just like, it's not like a tube like the pussy is, where it's like surrounded by this like all this stuff that's like moisturized.
Right.
It's the asshole, and then it's just nothing's in there. So you have to make sure it can go in and out. You have no natural lube there, so you have to really, really, really make sure that that is there.
It's so funny that you bring that up, just because I've always I'm fine having anal sex, and this is what I was getting at the beginning. I'm fine having anal sex. For me, I like vaginal sex just much more, because there's that surrounding, there's that all that stimulation for the whole thing.
Exactly.
So it takes me a lot longer having anal sex to come to my climax, just because there's
Wow.
not as much stimulation around where my sensitive areas are, which because
Wow.
I'm circumcised, the most, the sensitive areas are right, the first thing that goes in right at the head of the penis. So like like you said, it's just the asshole, and then it opens up into a lot of nothingness.
Yeah. And
well, I'm sure it's not
just the penetration going, through that asshole itself is you almost have to bring it all the way out and bring it back in, bring it all the way out and bring it back in order for it to feel.
Which I've also learned is less pleasurable for the person who's receiving if you bring it all the way out and put it back in. So
you got to get the head in, and it's almost like keep the head in. Because that's the mushroom. That's the hardest part to get in. Once you go around that like bottom part of the mushroom, and it's like, okay, I got the knuckle in, just keep the knuckle in, and then that way I don't have to worry about that ever again. But that's what makes it interesting. And with homosexual males or anybody that really has that over vaginal sex or never has the vaginal sex, they get used to that. They understand what they need to do in order for that to be pleasurable. I've been with guys who came faster with anal sex than they did vaginally, but we never just started with anal sex. We always started vaginally, so it didn't really count.
Right.
But
also just depending on the what you're into, fetishes and kinks and whatnot, like a lot of what you're passionate about can determine how fast you get to your climax.
Oh yeah. You can just think it. You can will it to yourself. You're
literally.
really into
you don't even have to touch it. Yeah, exactly.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So condoms, code brown, right? So condoms have lube a little bit. Eventually it rubs off. But using a condom helps with anal sex mostly, A, because of, the STIs, and B, because of the natural lubricant, and just protect, again, just so that is going back and forth comfortably. So make sure that you do that if you can. If not, and you're comfortable with the person and you guys are being safe in every other way, then you can do it raw. But just bear in mind that the rectal tissues are super delicate, like tissue paper. Just be very careful. And if you're gonna have vigorous sex, just make sure you have a lot of lube. So the safest anal sex is probably just with using a dildo strap on, because there's nothing to, you could clean it later, you could clean it before and after. You don't have to worry about any STIs or anything like that. So top 3 things to think about when you are engaging in anal sex is be mindful of the foods and drinks that you have prior to. Like most exercise, just wait 30 minutes before you swim, right? You got to wait 30 minutes before you do anything. You don't want to throw up. You don't want anything like that to happen.
I have to
like hours actually. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just funny that it's mentioned right now, because a couple weeks ago, I mentioned the person that I've been seeing is like super into anal sex.
Yeah.
Almost prefers it to any other kind. She's so sweet, and she's very nurturing when I come over. She wants to make sure that I'm well taken care of, which is really, really nice. And so she cooks every time I come over. And
that is sweet.
That's so sweet. She made chili last time.
Chili.
Oh.
And I said, thank you, because...
Did you take 2 bites and then
but
wait
it's like, I'll just
minutes?
smell this.
I had 4 bowls. Are you kidding? 2 bites. I was hungry.
Yeah.
Did you wait? What'd you do? How long until...
It's more just for comedic effect. Nothing happened. There was no explosion of any sort. I just thought the irony
of saying, "Hey, I'm really into anal sex. Come over. Let's eat chili first.
Yes.
No Netflix and chill.
Then we'll
ram it in my ass.
Taco.
It's okay. There's
Taco
oil.
Bell, like afterwards.
Right.
So
Where was your mind when you made this decision?
That's. And he had 4 bowls of it. I wonder if.
I mean, that was hungry.
And it was still great sex. You still had great anal sex.
It's phenomenal.
It was probably like, how much did she have?
2 bites. That's a good question.
Bowl and a half. I think bowl and a half. She went back for seconds, but I don't know.
Wild.
Okay.
I absolutely love tacos. People know I love sex. They know I love dancing. They know I love tacos. And I had a threesome with a couple. And they took me out. We went to have dinner. We went to a club. We got a little fucked up. We went to a hotel and we had a 12-hour threesome. But we went for tacos because I love tacos. So we went to a taco place. I was not prepared at all. I was not paying attention. I didn't think this threesome would be as insane as it was. But we had tacos and I had 4 tacos and I had so much guacamole and I had all this, I had like tequila and I get to the hotel, not that I had to like, whatever, code brown, but it was just like, I was like, oh man, I think I need to like wait for everything to settle. So I kind of was trying to like make sure that we were talking and smoking and foreplay. And I was like, nobody move. I'm just like, everybody just kind of
make
stay
sure all this is
stationary
in place
until I get
first.
settled. And everything was fine and nobody had any accidents, but I just remember being like, oh my God, I can't believe I ate so much. And then like eventually we had like anal sex and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know we were gonna have anal sex. So I didn't, like, I should have just not even eaten anything, but it was fine. So I think again, if you're nervous or like if you're just not used to it, thankfully I was used to it by that point, and Joe, you were as well, where you just like knew, I guess, what to do and make it work.
Hopefully too, the people that you're having sexual encounters with are going to be at least grown up and mature enough to know how to handle a situation if it does go awry. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's very important when you do something that puts you in that vulnerable of a state, that you don't have someone who is going to freak out, who is going to
Wrong point.
lose their and I've always said that about when a woman's on her period, but I mean for this it's the same exact thing. If you don't fuck a person, don't literally fuck them, but like fuck a person who puts shame on you because of that shit. It's fucking ridiculous.
Right, yeah.
Well, it's like if anybody's ever taken care of a baby or changed a baby's diaper, it's like, yeah, you get used to shit and piss all over your face and everything.
Parent?
Like, so for people like that, they're like, oh yeah, you got a little whatever. I got a baby wipe right here. We'll get it later.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Spray it with whatever spray you have and let's move on.
Not for nothing.
It's like, here, I got this towel to the side. Yeah, come on, let me grab this. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The majority of people I've had anal sex with have been mothers, have been people who have had children. You
poop when you have a baby. I mean, like when you go through being pregnant and having a baby, it's or if anybody even witnesses you having a baby, like you can't go back from that. Like you've seen it all, you've dealt with it all.
Go back.
So strong point, because the older people get, the more people get used to things like this happening. And if you feel comfortable enough with a person to have anal sex, you should feel comfortable enough that if something like that happens, it's not going to be such a devastating factor with you. It's
right.
Itself, but roll up the sheet and throw it in a corner and finish if you want, or whatever you need to, and just deal with it later. But I think that that's one of the biggest things. It's the, oh my God, I'm a straight man and I'm gay. If I have anal sex, it's also, oh my God, I don't want to do this because of religion, or I just don't want to poo. I don't want poo to be involved, and that's okay. But I've never had that happen to me. I don't know if you. I mean, I don't think a lot of people have really.
It happens. It happens.
But it happens.
It happens.
And if it does, get over it.
I've never had it happen to me, but I will say I have not. No, I haven't. But I've always tried to like kind of be more prepared, I guess. Trying to. You can't always predict those things happening, but But, that whole, code brown as we're using it, it's a fetish for some people. Like that thing. I know. Yeah.
Well, and fetishes go so deep, but you're absolutely right.
It's crazy. And I mean, I have been with someone who that was theirs, and I told them that was one of those hard lines. Can't do it. And not even,
Wow.
The honesty.
Oh no, I was going to say, how close were you at that point for him to bring that up? Or was it like first date, hey, I'm into this?
Scatting?
Scatting? Is that when you're peeing, pooping, or something like that? Or just peeing? Ronnie, you said that when did he like mention that to you as like this is what I'm into?
It was long time. This was someone that I had kind of like fooled around with in younger years. And then it's like, we kind of like been fooling around for like years. So, we were very comfortable with each other's bodies, and, it's just kind of like one of those things. It's like, if I'm sharing with you and you're sharing with me, then we're going to keep going until we reach a hard line. So when he told me that hard line, I was like, oh, okay, well, or when I told him that was mine, it's like, but I don't, I told him, I don't look at you any different. It doesn't matter. It's just not something that I can do.
Bless you.
we can do the rest, but
Discussion.
purposefully.
Bless you, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
discussion.
And communication is, I believe, the lack of communication with humans nowadays is incredible, especially with the internet and cyber relationships and what have you, texting. Nobody talks on the phone. Nobody really understands tone. Communication is lacking. I saw somebody today post something about, oh my God, online dating like 10 years ago was like, hey, you want to go out on a date and talk about blah, blah, blah. And maybe, oh, do you want to have a family? Do you want to do this? Are you into, this type of like kink? And now, oh, hey, how are you? Can I fuck you in your ass? And it's like, that is literally what we're just going for.
Yeah, like your friend who says that if we're going to be together, you're going to take it in the ass. Like, he's got to bring that up pretty early on.
Bring it up first. Like, he's
Because don't waste my time for 3 dates.
Yes. Right. If you're not going to do it, then don't. Yeah. And you know what?
Don't get involved.
Also funny. The first date I had with that person who was into scatting he had some really it was just outlandish questions. I was like, oh, wait, what? And we were sitting but it was outlandish because it was just like, oh, how's the weather? Do you like your ass ate or no? Like, I'm just like, whoa, what, huh? It was just such a dramatic, it was just such a dramatic change. But, I was like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So is that where we're going? But yeah.
And I'm so blunt and honest
about it.
Yeah, right. I'm very blunt and honest, but I don't think I could do that. I would do a better job at transitioning into that. I think that from the jump, I'll just be like, oh, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, what's your favorite color? And what's your favorite position? I don't know.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, are you a virgin? Who the fuck knows? Sometimes you just got to be like, hey, have you even ever had sex? But, that's really interesting. And you should bring these things up before you invest any time in that person, because if you trickle in and you softly step through and you have these small discussions and it builds up, eventually you're dating a year, and then now you're talking about if anal sex is appropriate or not. Now you're like, oh, well, if it's not, or if it is, can I still be with you? Am I ever going to fake doing this? Or, now we're emotionally invested and we don't agree with these things, and not just sex, but just with most things, right? To have this type of discussion in the very beginning to make sure everybody's comfortable with the relationship that you have is huge, is absolutely huge. So feel comfortable, be safe. You got to be relaxed or you're going to suffer. And with yourself and with that person. And if you're struggling with your sexual orientation, whether or not be related to your culture or religion, you have to address that first. And if you feel uncomfortable with yourself because of those reasons, and you want to engage in that with somebody, have that discussion so they understand that you're sensitive about it. Because the more you have that with that person, I think that the more that you can do it without feeling shameful, right? And I think Joe, you can contest to that, being as though, hey, I enjoy it. This is what I want. I've been able to love myself and understand this. So I'm going to enjoy it and not feel this way. And I'm going to discuss with this person, that I like and enjoy it, prior to, and it's fine. And that's completely acceptable and the right way to do things. I think all three of us are very good having a strong sexual understanding of themselves and being able to converse with people about these things freely, because we have a strong understanding of ourselves just generally. And so therefore it trickles into that sexual confidence, right? Yeah. So I'm going to finish with just the tip. The tip of the day is get lubes. Get more lubes than you can possibly have. Get all different types.
Yes. All of them.
Guys, anal sex cannot work without lube. Don't do it in the shower. Don't do it in a hot tub or a pool. Water doesn't make it really comfortable. And doing it raw or with spit, it's not that comfortable. Lube. The right lubricant can make or break your entire sex life, regardless if it's with yourself or others. I smoke a lot of weed. I get dry mouth sometimes. And when I pleasure myself, I still need lube. I still need that in order for it to be the best sexual experience. Also, it reduces injury because of those very delicate tissues there. It takes the sexual experience to a whole nother level, especially if it's the type of lube with extra stimulants, or a lube with mint or something crazy. You just have to be and what you want. Now, it's 2021. There's like 4 million different types of lubes out there on the market that can fit your individual needs. So go out and find those. I found a list of like a few really good lubes that people have recommended in 2020. If you go to my YouTube channel and you find episode 6, this podcast episode, you'll see in the details of that, I'll have a whole list of the lubes that are top right now in 2021. And so that way you can turn up the heat on your sex life, get lubed and get fucked, because that is what we all should be doing. Do you guys have anything else to add before we wrap up here?
No.
Good to go. You guys.
It's a go.
Happy that I was able to join. This was
most definitely. This was really fun. Very, very fun.
So guys, please always remember that we are all very lucky to live in a time and place where we get to have sex with who and how we want, and that not everybody is afforded that right. So again, a huge thanks to you, Roni and Joe, for being here today.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.
You guys, I really hope you come back. I'm sure you will. And we will see you all next week for a discussion on the female orgasm. So we will get into that next week. It has been a pleasure getting fucked with all of you. Until next time. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. For more pleasure and direct contact, follow me on Instagram at We're All Fucked Podcast. Or you can email me at podcastbysasha@gmail.com. A huge thanks to our sexy listeners and our guest host for today.